It's the Lawn Gnome, and welcome to your September 2019 episode of Sunday Sit Down, the show where anything goes and nothing gets left behind. I'm hoping that every one of you are enjoying this wonderful holiday weekend if you are here celebrating in the United States. And this was not something that I intended to say, but I also want to give a shout out to everybody who lives in the southeast portion of the United States. I know that you guys had a storm coming, and I'm hoping that each and every one of you managed to get your rations if you weren't able to leave your areas, and if you did manage to get out of there, congratulations. But to everybody, I just hope that you all are staying safe down there as Hurricane Dorian is fast approaching. So in the meantime, we're going to try and give everybody a little bit of cheerfulness as well as a little bit of insight today. I've got a very special topic with a very special guest. Not a native New Yorker, but a resident of New York, which is great. So someone who I've actually met in person as well. And I'm very excited to talk to her about this specific topic, being a parent here in the YouTube community. Now, I am not a parent yet, although I'm certain that I am old enough to be a parent at this point in time. So I've got my friend Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany here, who happens to be a YouTube parent here and someone who is very active. So I'm excited today to pick her brain because I gotta know how she does this, especially as someone who is hoping to be a parent soon. I definitely have a lot of questions. So Bethany, good morning, and thank you very much for joining me on the show today, as well as happy Labor Day weekend to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I am very impressed with the fact that you have been in the community for a much shorter time than I have, and especially with the fact that you are a proud parent of two wonderful boys, the fact that you managed to balance your family life with your boys and your husband and still manage to be someone who is not just active in the Booktube community, but someone who definitely tries to make the time to have a lot of bookish adventures, whether it's going to conventions or going to book signings. You just managed to do it all. So I really want to know how you do it. So of course, as always, I've got 7 questions, and I'm really excited to see your insight in regards to the answers to the questions that you will give.
Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah, so as always, I like to begin at the beginning with my guests. And the first question is, as I said earlier, you are truly in this community a rare specimen. A person with such a busy life, and yet you managed to make a YouTube channel. And the other interesting thing is the fact that you did this after you had your kids.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't actually do that. So give us a little bit of insight as to how you came to your decision at the point in your life that you were in.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, and I guess I am probably a little unusual in that way. I have been on Booktube now for a little over 2 years, and I do have 2 kids. My oldest is 5, and my youngest is 2.5. Keep me very busy, and for me, it was really like the change of having my second child that was part of what led to me starting my YouTube channel in the first place. I had been a longtime viewer of YouTube. I didn't actually know Booktube existed, which is interesting. I watched a lot of beauty vlogger, like beauty gurus and family vloggers and like geeky lifestyle content. And I had always thought that YouTube seemed like it would be a really fun thing to do. I liked the idea of it, but I was like, but what would I do? What would my channel be about? I don't really know. And so this had kind of been in the back of my mind for a while. And so we moved to New York about 3 years ago. I was pregnant with my second son at the time, and I was going from having been working full-time before we moved here to being home full-time with kids. And I am one who really likes I like being busy. I like keeping my mind active. I like working. And that was challenging. And so fast forward a little bit, my son was born in December. So he was like the end of December. And then I attended as like my birthday present to myself, BookCon 3 years ago. And cause I love books. I've been a long time reader since I was a kid. I love books, read a lot. And I discovered the Booktube existed, and I was at this point in my life where I needed something more because I was going a little bit crazy. I was home with a toddler and an infant, and I was like, I need a creative outlet. I need something else to do. And I, in hindsight, I was probably dealing a little bit with postpartum depression as well. And I was like, you know what? Booktube, this is the thing. I can talk about books. Let me just start my channel. And so a couple of weeks later, I just did. And I hadn't watched it really almost at all. And it's the best decision I've ever made. I have made so many amazing friends through this community. I love it. I love everything about it. I like making videos, editing videos, like all of it has been amazing. And getting to read and talk about books and things that I'm so passionate about has just been such a great experience. So yeah, a lot of it for me came out of the process of like, okay, I'm like home with these kids. I need something more. Maybe this is it. And it really has been. And it's led to a lot of really cool opportunities.
That's fantastic. I mean, with me, my story is completely different. I mean, I've alluded to my YouTube beginnings, and before I actually was a YouTuber, I was actually doing a lot of reviewing on Amazon.com. So I was always liking to just get my ideas out there. But as someone who really didn't have much for himself at the time, I mean, because of the fact that I was working in an industry that got wrecked by the Great Recession of 2008, I ended up having to move back in with my parents. I didn't actually have a girlfriend at the time, so I hadn't even met my wife yet. So, I really didn't have much except for the small circle of friends that I had, and I just, like you, needed a creative outlet. And I just thought that YouTube was a much easier way for me to get my voice out there rather than just sitting at a computer and typing, getting to show not just what your thoughts are, but also get what your personality is like. And Booktube, I think, was something that did very positive things for me as a YouTuber and also as a community member, because I also was a very big reader. It took me a long time to really be the reader that I am now because I just had not found my niche. So when I discovered Booktube, that was when I actually started hearing about all of these great science fiction and fantasy books that I hadn't even heard about. So the fact that right after I had gotten my master's degree, that was when things were starting to get a little bit better. I had already met Jen, and we were definitely planning on the whole marriage thing. And at that time, with all of my classes officially done, I said, now I can finally get back into reading. So I was doing so much reading. And of course, meeting all of these great people was also one of the best things that happened because, it was great to know that there were just so many people that actually were close to me, distance-wise, that I actually was able to meet. And we'll get into the whole BookCon thing, but it's great that I actually got to meet you. And I know that we also have a mutual friend in Marissa from Blatantly Bookish. The whole thing that I'm trying to get at is I always figured that when the day would come that I would have a little one running around, that would be the day where I would end up having to cut my production back because it's all baby all the time. And this is someone who sees his siblings. My younger brother is a proud father of 3 girls. My sister has a daughter herself. And yeah, they're a handful, but there's such a joy. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, how do you find that me time for myself, and how do you find that creative outlet? And at the same time, I always say to myself, when I was growing up, I remember my father having that me time. So I'm like, if he can do it, maybe I can find some way to do it too. But it's just great to know that to a certain degree, your children were sort of your inspiration to try and find that creative outlet. And I'm just glad that they actually gave you the opportunity to find that time, because that's something that a lot of
Absolutely.
parents say, you know, like, how do you find the time? Everyone I know who's a parent says, forget about watching your favorite TV shows, forget about finding your movies, your music. They're like, you're not going to be able to do it anymore. It's Peppa Pig and Daniel Tiger all the time.
Yeah, no, I think that actually being a parent, it's so important to find that me time. At least for me, I think I'm a better parent and a better mother because I make time for myself and I make space for parts of my identity that are not just about being a mom. And so for me at least, that's really important and I think necessary. And I tell a lot of people, I think parenting is like the best and hardest thing you will ever do. And so yes, it can be wonderful, but it also takes a lot out of you. And so, you know, if you're not finding places to like get something and fill yourself up, like you're going to end up burning out or like trying to get something from your kids that they shouldn't be giving you, you know, like just emotionally. And so I think it's really important to have those things, whatever they are, as part of your life. And I think that part of what makes that work is having a supportive partner where like I have the utmost respect for single parents who manage to do things on their own, because I think without a partner who's super supportive, like there's no way we could sort of make this work.
I agree with you there. I really feel that having a support system does make you a better parent, but I'm also glad that you specifically said that even though parenting is a challenging, time-consuming job, you have to find that me time for yourself, because if you don't have that me time and it's just, you know, work, home life, and all of that stuff, you're going to not really be in a good place. And even though I'm not even a father yet, I know for a solid fact that if you're just got that massive stress on you, you're going to take it out on your kids and your family entirely. And that's never a truly healthy thing. So you really do need to find that me time for yourself, as well as a massive love of coffee, I'm anticipating. I mean, thank goodness I do love myself a good cup of coffee. I'm very nervous for Jen because she doesn't like coffee, but I always joke with people, yeah, you're going to find me in this little alcove that I've made for myself right by my Keurig, and basically I'm just going to have the coffee going into me intravenously with an IV bottle, so I'll be good.
I mean, especially when they're really, really small. And I will say this, like my youngest was like 5 or 6 months old, I think, when I started my channel. And I do think the first like 3 or 4 months, it is intense with a newborn. And I have a few friends who've managed to keep making videos even after having a newborn. And I don't know how they manage it, because I would have struggled with that. So there is certainly a period of time where like it is very, very intensive, but like, you know, that's not forever. And
that's true. At some point in time, they're going to be teenagers and you're not going to see them at all. And you're going to say, oh, where did the time go?
It goes so fast. Well, my oldest is starting kindergarten next.
That's amazing. I hope he enjoys himself. I hope he's excited.
He's so excited.
Yeah, my oldest niece is about to start first grade. It's crazy because I remember when she was born. So it's quite amazing. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this recent conversation about finding the time, and that is, give us a little bit of insight into your time management and how does YouTube fit into parenting, as well as just getting all of your other important tasks done?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So for me, there's a few things. Number one is I tend to batch film. So I usually will film anywhere from, like, depending on the length of the videos. If I'm filming longer videos, I won't film as many. So, you know, if I'm filming really long videos, I might only film 2 in a day, but sometimes I'll film 3 or 4 videos at a time, edit them, schedule them so that I'm not having to film constantly, because I do put up at least 2 videos a week, which is a lot, sometimes more. Like the last couple of weeks it's been 3 videos a week on my channel, and the only way that I can't film every week or a couple of times a week, so I film like several videos all at once, edit them, and then try to usually schedule them out so that I'm only filming once every couple weeks or more, depending. And the other part is, like I said, having a support system. So I do have a babysitter who comes 1 to 2 days a week, depending on the week. And then that's partly for YouTube, but it's also for other things that I'm doing, freelance work. And so she is with the kids so that I have time to do stuff for like several hours a week. And then we kind of divide things up with my husband. So he thankfully has like a fairly flexible job. So he usually has the kids on the weekend a lot. And eventually we'd like to get to the point where once both kids are in school, I'm not necessarily working on the stuff on the weekends, but right now, other than like, we'll sometimes have like family time and things we do, but a lot of times he's with the kids on the weekend so that I can, film, edit, do freelance work, do whatever work-related things I need to do. And then I'm with them most of the week during normal work days. And so that's kind of, and then I'll, edit in the evenings if I need to, and just kind of fit stuff around whatever else is going on. And then because I'm a booktuber, a big part of my content is that I'm talking about books. And so reading has to kind of fit in there as well. And so a lot of what I do is I always have a book with me. I do a lot of audiobooks or bring books with me, ebooks, physical books. So, I'll read at the playground, I'll listen to audiobooks while I'm doing chores or grocery shopping, and I kind of just fit it around my life and the other things that I have to do.
Yeah, I will also just say, you mentioned grocery shopping. I don't care what anybody says. I love grocery shopping. I think it's just for the fun. It's one of my favorite things that I like to do. And maybe it's just because of the fact that when Jen and I do the grocery shopping, sometimes I like to make jokes when I see like certain foods in the grocery store. I don't know why. I'm not even a dad and I'm already making tons of dad jokes. That's what a lot of people say about
You're
me.
ready.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm also glad that you mentioned batch filming, because that is something that I also do myself. I mean, one of the few things that I'm very blessed about is the flexibility that I have through my job, because of the fact that this past year, they just officially instituted a flex hours program. We get to work from home once a week. And I personally think that that is such a great thing for me, because we also have a very interesting schedule. Our office closes at 2 o'clock on Fridays. And because of the fact that my commute is over an hour long, I always say to myself, why would I take 2 hours out of my day to be in my office for 5 hours when I can be just as active at home? Because the best part is I don't have to be tied down to any specific programs that I use at work. I can do everything from home, which is excellent. And so one of the few things that I did decide to change was, at one point I was making videos almost as often as I possibly could. But when I started this job and I started doing my commuting into Manhattan, it was definitely a different time for me, and it was really hard for me to come home and just turn on the camera and start doing stuff. But I am not someone who sleeps anymore to a certain degree. Even on Sundays and Saturdays, I am up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm just ready to tackle the day. So this morning, I actually was up at 7 o'clock because I purposely tried to sleep a little late, but I just got out of bed and I went for a walk because it was just so nice outside. So I walked for 2 miles this morning. It was excellent. But I also have an exercise machine now. So sometimes in the morning, I get downstairs and I work out for about an hour. But after that, I will sit in front of a camera and I will record as many videos as I possibly can. I think one day I recorded 12 videos just because I managed to have the time. And I also agree with you in the editing process. I think that the editing is fun. I actually enjoy being creative. I know that so many people say it's the worst part about making YouTube videos, but unless the program decides to have conniption fits, that's maybe the only time where I will actually say, yeah, I'm not enjoying the editing process. It's time consuming. It is.
Well, it can be. I mean, I guess this is the thing is I always have, and I know not everybody's this way, I always have more video ideas than I have time to make them. I mean, I make a lot of videos. I have a lot more running lists of ideas of things I would like to do that I just don't have time to do. But part of it is the more comfortable you get on camera, the less you have to edit yourself. And so, especially for a lot of the book type content, talking head videos, the editing is pretty straightforward. It doesn't actually take me that long to edit a lot of my videos. The ones that do take time are vlogs, which are more fun to edit but they're a lot more time consuming. And I would love to do more of them and more like challenge vlog videos. And I have some things in the works, but they're just, you know, they take more time and I can't do them as often as I would like. But for, you know, I mean, like if I'm sitting in, and sometimes too, if I need an extra video, I'll do a live stream and then you don't have to edit it. It's there. Like I did this yesterday. I did a tag video on a live stream and, you know, I don't have to really do much with it other than like make a thumbnail and put the stuff in, but I enjoy the editing process. I think it's fun. Yeah. And it took me a lot longer when I first started because I was getting better at editing, getting better at being on camera. And so I would make mistakes more often, but the more comfortable you get, I feel like the whole thing takes less time. So
yeah, and for me with reading, that's one of the few reasons why I love my new commute now, because I think that the train that I'm on right now is just so relaxing. So that's usually where I get all of my reading done. And more so in the afternoons, because I'm finding myself sleeping on the train in the morning these days, just because of the fact that I'm catching a 6:02 train. But that's because I choose to do that. I could come into the office a little bit later, but I choose to go early because I believe in the Zazu mentality from The Lion King. The sooner you get to the water hole, the sooner you can leave. And that's basically what I do, because I don't get paid for overtime, so we basically do it that way. But yeah, on the afternoons, I will basically keep my little book with me. Usually it's a mass market paperback, and I keep it in my work bag, and pretty much for about 25 minutes to 30 minutes, I'm reading. And it's great. It's just absolutely great. So the third question that I have for you is probably one of the more interesting questions. And that is, what is the family's overarching atmosphere about the fact that mom is a YouTuber and it's time for mom to do her work over on YouTube?
Yeah, so most of the time I try to film, not always, sometimes it doesn't work out, but most of the time I try to film when the kids are out of the house. Like right now, they're at the playground with their dad. So, you know, like that's, and you know, I'll film either when he takes them outside or the babysitter takes them to the park, and I'll try to just like condense all my filming into that like couple hours that I get while they're out. Sometimes that just doesn't work out, and so I'll film and you can hear them in the background, and maybe they'll occasionally run in and make an appearance, and you know, it's fine, no big deal. I'm a mom. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think they're kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. They love, I don't do them all the time, but I do family vlogs occasionally, and they love seeing themselves on camera. So they'll want to rewatch old videos. Like recently we were talking about every year we go to a pumpkin farm in Queens, which is really fun around Halloween. And so I was talking to my older son about it. He was excited. He was like, can I see the video where we did it last year? I want to see it. And so we sat and watched it. So they'll want to like watch videos of themselves. So those are fun to have. Even though they don't get as many views as my other videos on my channel, I partly make them because they're kind of cool to have to see the kids as they grow and memories of family trips and stuff like that. So those are good.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm gonna really show my age right now, but I remember when my mom would record home videos of me and my brother. There were a lot more videos of me and my brother growing up. My sister, when she came along, that was when the technology was changing. But I remember my mom carrying the big video camera, CR strapped to her waist, and basically, whenever she would finish recording those movies, my brother and I would love to watch them. And it's amazing how family memories, capturing them, has changed so much. Now it's literally a whole series of 5-minute videos on a smartphone, and yet it's amazing how much you capture in that small span of time. It's amazing. And that's another thing that I really like about YouTube, and it's because it's also a memory preserver for a certain extent. It's so interesting to revisit some of my thoughts on certain movies or certain topics that I discuss. And I'm always curious to say to myself, you know, how do I feel about that now? And also when you take a look at yourself on camera, it's also interesting to see how you presented yourself, and you say to yourself, oh, I should have done that a little bit better, or maybe it could have been done this way. Because when I take a look at the videos that I recorded 9 years ago compared to the videos that I've recorded this year, I see so much of a change in myself in such a good way in terms of how my overall presentation was. My thoughts are clearer, my delivery is a lot more crisper, the way that I'm actually able to avoid things like long pauses or ums. It's amazing how much we grow as content creators the more that we do this. It really is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's really true. And I don't go back and rewatch most of my videos. I think the main thing we do watch is those vlogs. And part of it is it's fun, it's nostalgic. I'm not always the best at taking pictures, which I know a lot of people take a ton of pictures of their kids. I do some, but for me, a lot of it is the video. And so if we go on vacation or, you know, we do special things, I always vlog that. And it's fun to go back and watch, and like, it's amazing seeing how much they change even in a year. So it's fun for that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I did that I thought was such a nice thing to do when I went on vacation to Florida, or even when I went to BookCon, I took little micro vlogs and I put them on Twitter. I thought that that was such a cool thing to do, because I was like, I know so many people love to make those massive videos and they show their entire YouTube experience, but I found so much more happiness just recording that specific moment. And I remember, and you're in one of them. I remember that. You and Marissa are in one of them.
Oh, cool.
So I just thought it's like, it just speaks volumes just for that small moment in time. But in terms of me making the time, when Jen and I had a 1-bedroom apartment, that was basically, you know, when I wanted to record, I would probably just sneak out in the early morning and just record when she wasn't in the room. Now I have a whole room to myself. I'm in the lower level of the house, and especially when she's in full-on teaching mode, this is the best time to basically be down here and just doing all of my video work, because she is lesson planning almost every Sunday. Hopefully that will change this year because she's got the same schedule. So hopefully she won't have to really subject herself to too much work on Sunday, and she'll be able to relax a little bit. But while she's really in that mode, I don't want to disturb her. So I'm down here. She can't necessarily hear me unless I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, which I won't be. But the fact that we have the ability to find that time management now is great. Now, when a child comes along, I know for a solid fact that when it's time for Jen to do her lesson plans, it's time for me to take care of the little one, whenever that day may be. And also, when it comes to us doing our work schedules, what I'm hoping for is I'll be able to try and find a way where I can actually do a little bit more work from home in a given week, rather than just sending the kid over to daycare. That's the one thing that I'm very nervous about as a parent, because daycare, I don't know, there's something about it. I know that so many people do it, but I just feel that, you know, being as present as you possibly can be in your child's life, I think that it's just more positive than just having to have that child being taken care of by strangers, especially at the very beginning of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's complicated. So I've been on both sides of this. When we just had one kid, I did work full time. He was in a daycare center, and you know, we had a good experience with it. I think, and now, you know, we have babysitters some of the time. So I've kind of like tried multiple things, and I think you kind of have to figure out what works for your family. I do think if you find the right place or the right person, it can be great. I also think you can have terrible experiences if you don't. So I think part of it is like, if you're, you know, if you're hiring a nanny or a babysitter, or, you know, using a daycare center, whatever it is, like doing your homework, making sure it's the right fit for your kid, it's the right fit for your family, and then being willing to change it if it's not working. You know, if something like I think that's the thing, is not like being present for those moments that you are with your child, and like being aware of like how they're responding to things and how things are being handled, I think is really important. But like, I do think that there can be some benefit to having, you know, even if it's not full time, but like a part-time caregiver that they connect with. We have a babysitter who's really wonderful, and they love her, and she's great. And she is younger and has like the energy to do stuff with them, like craft projects or things that I just don't have the time and energy or capacity to do most of the time. And so I think there can definitely be positive benefits to that. And to be fair, part of this is like, there are some parents where like their career would have been being a kindergarten teacher or a child caregiver. That was never me. Like that was, and so part of it is just like what your strengths are as a parent and what your children are like. And that varies so much from family to family. For me, my background is like social science and international relations. And I was like a research project manager. So like, you know, like my career would never have been childcare or being like a kindergarten teacher. So that's just not my strength. But for some people it may be. So I just think like it's so different depending on families and like what works for you or doesn't. And similarly, one thing that I think might be for this video interesting to talk about is like people's approach to having their kids on camera or not having them on camera.
Yeah, we are going to talk about that a little bit later. So that is part of
Yeah.
the topic of discussion. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I mean, one of the few things that I know for a solid fact that my wife and I are very excited about is we have a neighborhood that we're now officially in, and there's a lot of very young kids. So what we do know is when the time comes when we have our own child, whenever that day may be, and we're going to need someone to babysit, we're going to have plenty of kids that are going to be within babysitting age. And we went to neighborhood block parties and we've gotten to know our neighbors. There are some wonderful people here, and we can definitely tell that there are some young kids that we are hoping are going to grow up to be just, you know, teenagers who just love being around kids. There's lots of young girls in our community that just love playing with little babies, and I'm just saying to myself, oh, that's a good thing to see. That's a very healthy thing to see. You also want to have a good community around you that has young kids that are willing, you know, having the kids make friends, you know, if there's a favor that needs to be done, you know, it's just great to have a really nice tight-knit community as well. I think it's a very positive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think community is so important with kids. And I also think too that like finding somebody from within a community, at least for me, makes me more comfortable because I feel like there's a built-in accountability that comes with that. So like most of the babysitters we use are from college students who work doing child stuff at our church, running Sunday school and stuff. And so that's like where we find most of our babysitters. And because we see them at church and they're in a community, I feel like for me at least, there's more accountability of like, okay, like, I don't know, like it makes me feel more comfortable as a parent knowing who they are and that other people know who they are, and just like it's not some random person from a website. I don't know, like people do it differently, but at least for me that's
yeah, because that's the way it used to be. You know, when people needed a babysitter, they reached out to a kid in the community saying, do you have some time to watch my son or my daughter or my kids? You know, that's the way it was. It's because, you know, the parents know you. Some of, you know, especially in the community that I grew up in. I grew up in Queens, and it was a very tight-knit community. I was part of a very large, modern, observant Jewish community, and everybody in the neighborhood knew everybody. And, you know, especially since my sister was much younger than me and she had a lot of friends in school, you know, my parents were friends with their parents. And so every now and again I get a call and they say, does your son have some time to watch my kids? They know me. They know me. They won't. That's another thing. It's like if they know you, and especially if they look up to the older kids in the community, they're not going to be a crazy burden for the kids as well. So I also think when the kids know the older kids in the community, and especially if they like the older kids in the community, then they're going to be very excited to have that kid babysit them. You know, I think that's a really nice thing too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that, you know, for us, like we've used like college students, but still they're younger. I feel like they have like more energy, and also it's not their full-time job. Like they're in school, and I don't know, like at least for me, you know, people do whatever they're comfortable with, but for me, that's been a really positive thing, especially because my boys are very high energy and like, so like I need someone who can keep up with them.
There you go. So let's talk a little bit about transitions here. Switching from mom to a peer in the YouTube community, and then going back to being a mom, being a wife, you know, include a little bit of your transitioning through these, because you're basically putting on a lot of different hats. So how do you manage to just, you know, get into those specific transitions in your given day? It's like, because let's face it, you know, sometimes, you know, you've had a whole day with your kids, you're exhausted. Well, how am I going to be able to find that energy to connect with the young people in the BookTube community today, et cetera, et cetera? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think, so I think for me, a lot, at least right now, partly because I do have young kids and things are busy, and for other reasons too, like a lot of my social life is related to the BookTube community. So a lot of my closest friends and people that I chat with regularly, that's where I know them from. And part of this also is an interesting thing with living in Manhattan and having children. So, you know, ages of normal ages for people having kids are so different in different parts of the country. And so it's been really an interesting experience because we moved here with children. And so I'm 32. And in some places that is like, you know, on the older end for having two kids. In Manhattan, it's very young.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, well, listen, I just turned 38 and I still
okay.
don't even have kids yet.
Yeah,
So
I mean, and
I
that's
totally get it.
typical. So it's interesting because, you know, now especially having a kid in school, my son was in pre-K last year, and you know, all of the other parents are at least a decade older than me. And so so you know, I'm like, oh yeah, I have a YouTube channel. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they still don't understand it.
I mean, not all of them. Some of them are like fine, but it's, you know, it's just, it's a little bit different, and it's sometimes a little more challenging to find like a peer group in some way. I don't know. It's like a weird thing living here, being the age I am and having kids. Whereas before, you know, we're in Pittsburgh for 2 years, and there I joined a mom group. I was 27 when I had my oldest, and most of the new moms were like 21. So I was one of the older people. So it's just so interesting depending on the part of the country you're in. Anyway, all that to say, like, BookTube has ended up being a place where I really feel like I've found a tribe of like women I connect with really well, and we're spread out across the country, and I've made really good friends. And so for me, that's like a lot of where my social life is coming from. And I don't know, like for me, I think it's so important because like being a mom is like an important part of who I am and what I do, but you know, it's one small part of my identity. And you know, and so it's for me really helpful and refreshing to have these relationships with people where like we're not just talking about about our kids, you know, like I
Yeah.
need that. I need like to have other conversations, if that makes sense, you know.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, I think what's very interesting with me in YouTube right now is the fact that I've definitely been noticing, especially in the communities that I am a part of, there are a lot more younger people coming into the space, and I am not seeming to find the connection with these much younger people, but at the same time, I'm still connected with a whole bunch of YouTubers that I met when we were all in our late 20s, early 30s, and now I hope that this doesn't offend anyone, but we're the old farts of the community right now, and we're trying to find our place right now because I don't want to sound hostile or anything, but some of us feel like we're getting pushed out because of the
Hmm.
fact that people are saying that we're not relevant anymore. Like we're not on the same patterns of thought as these younger people are. So to a
Hmm.
certain degree, I come into this community wanting to connect with some of the younger people because, you know, I've experienced so much. And the most interesting thing about me, especially with my age, is there's still so much more that I need to experience. You know, I mean, would I personally have been happier knowing that I had a child a little bit earlier in life? You know, I think it would have been better for me, but at the same time, you know, life happens and you just don't know where the chips are going to fall. You know,
Yeah.
I met my wife very late in my days, you know, because my 20s were such a different place for me because it took me such a long time to figure my own self out. And one of the few things that I do not do is I will not try to share myself and my feelings and my love with somebody else unless I know for a solid fact that I am 100% happy with who I am. Because if
Yeah.
you're not working on yourself, you're just going to be a big mess. And when I see myself right now, I just know that when I see these younger kids, I want to share, you know, what YouTube was like, what things were like when I was growing up. Also let them know there's younger YouTubers right now that are now going into college, who are graduating, getting their master's degrees, getting jobs. I don't know if some of them seem to have the guidance that some people need. You know, sometimes you have to learn it yourself. But if you have a helping hand, I think that it's important, and especially knowing what YouTube has been like in the earlier years and knowing some of the hard times that it's had and some of the good times that it's had. You know, I feel being an older member of the community, it's sort of like being a parental figure to a certain degree, helping the younger generation out when it comes to YouTube. I think that's just what I felt.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a harder time with that. I like, I don't know, like my approach to it has really more been like, let people do yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I'm like, I think that probably a lot of like younger people probably just don't care how much, and I think that's okay, and I'm okay with my audience being what it is, and that like the right people will find me. And so like it's interesting talking to different YouTubers and seeing like the differences sometimes in their demographics. Like I don't know how much you look at your analytics, but like I look at my YouTube demographics. By far my biggest demographic group is women 25 to 34, and like that's fine. You know, I have some younger, some older, but like that is definitely my biggest demographic. And like if that's who I'm connecting with, like I'm kind of in that group, and I think I'm okay with that. I guess I like, you know, I think I do maybe connect with some people who are younger just because like I read adult and I read YA, and so some people find me for different reasons. But at least for me, like I'm just gonna do sort of what makes sense for me and talk about the things that I care about and where I'm at. And like if, you know, if I'm not the right person for you, then okay, that's fine. Go find the right YouTuber for you. Like no big deal. Like I guess I'm okay with my audience being whatever it is and whatever makes sense for who I am and what I bring to the table for YouTube. And I do think that like, while there is a large young community of booktubers, I also think there's a growing community of older booktubers and older viewers who are not, you know, like 18. And if they are and they want to watch my channel, that's great too. You know, they're welcome, of course. But like, I don't know, like I think sometimes people like overthink it being all so young, and I'm kind of okay with like young people doing whatever makes sense for them. And I don't, you know, I'm not bothered by it one way or another, if that makes sense.
That's good to know. No, that's important to say things like that. And I guess you're right. You know, everybody goes into this in different ways. And sometimes the perspectives that we have is not just based on what we feel, but it's also based on what some of the people that we are close to in the community feel as well. I just have these conversations so much. And I said to two of my friends, I said, how about maybe once a month we just get together and we just do a live stream about the things that we've been enjoying over the past month? Because I'm noticing right now there is a larger group of content creators that are in their late 20s and 30s and even going into their 40s. I mean, I am happy to know that one of my better friends in the community is within that age range as well. I've actually met her in person as well. My friend Stacy from Stacy's Story, she's one of my very good friends. And it's just good to know that we found that connection. And it's just great to know that we're trying to find ways to bring out good content for people. And we also believe that we want to create more content that our generation would like as well. You know, I also think that some of the things that I talk about on my channel, especially when I talk about my favorite movies, when I do my fandom feature once a month, just showing people the ability to get an opportunity to see a movie that I grew up with. Maybe they'll enjoy it, maybe they won't enjoy it, I don't know. But I think that also being a Funko Pop collector is a great thing as well, because the thing I love so much about that company is the fact that they are exciting younger generations with old stuff. I mean, I think that because I've watched their documentary on Netflix so much, and it's great. And I love that the CEO of Funko says, my goal in life is to make sure that everybody in the world knows who Huckleberry Hound is. I just think that's one of the coolest things to say for a life goal. You know, this one iconic cartoon character from the 1950s and 60s, he just wants every kid and every adult to know who he was. I just think that that's really cool, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in preserving older things in popular culture because I still find a ton of relevancy. I still remember when I was the young kid at my very, very first job, and I actually mentioned Perry Mason, and everybody in that boardroom who was in their 50s and 60s turned and said, how the hell do you know who Perry Mason is?
I used to watch a lot of those shows with my grandma when I was a teenager, which was funny. Like Perry Mason, Murder, She Wrote, like a lot of those kind of older
Exactly.
things.
But when I throw like an old pop culture reference, people just get blown away. I said, it's because I had parents who knew that that was relevant and they wanted me to know what it was too. And I'm grateful for that. So let's talk about getting the family involved. Is there a situation where there is possibly a little bit of reluctance when you seriously think about having your husband or your kids in your video, or is everybody just all in when there's an opportunity for them to be on camera?
The kids love it. They're, you know, like they're always wanting to hop in. And even when I'm like doing Insta stories, if they come in and see me like doing a little mini vlog on my Instagram stories, they'll be like, can I do it? Can I say hi? Can I be on? You know, I mean, they love being on camera. They love seeing themselves on camera. So they are all for it. My husband is like very supportive of what I'm doing and is like, fine, as long as he doesn't have to be on camera very often. So, like,
the whole thing,
He's like, I'll like make small appearances in vlogs and I'll do one video a year with you and that's it.
I had just started making my YouTube channel when I met Jen, and when I told her that I was doing this stuff, she actually thought that it was kind of cute, and she was completely okay with that. But she will never be in any of my videos physically because of the fact that she is a teacher of young kids, and the last thing that she wants is for one of her students to stumble upon my YouTube channel and say, oh my God, there's my teacher, what's she doing on YouTube? So as much as I think that she and I would just be dynamite together on a YouTube channel, I have nothing but the utmost respect for her with her choices. But I also am glad that sometimes she would not necessarily make a physical appearance, but on some videos she had her voice exposed, so people actually do, because part of me also does want to say, I mean, look, I'm as nerdy as they come. I just want people to know that my wife actually exists in this world, which is why I was always excited.
Well, and I mean, the thing is too, is like my husband, and I mean, part of what connected us is my husband is also super nerdy, and so like, if he was comfortable with it, he would also be great on YouTube, but he just is like, I have no interest in it. Like, I support you doing it. I will do like a video every once in a while, but like, you know, and I mean, for him, he's less worried with his job. He's a professor, so he teaches college students. But it's just, he's like, I don't really want to be on camera, but I'll do it occasionally if you really want me to.
Yeah, Jen loves reading. I mean, we still have 16 boxes that we have. Well, I think it's less now, but there's still a whole bunch of books that we haven't unpacked. All the boxes are just filled with books, and they're her books. So she loves to read. And also, it was also nice that I actually got a chance to bring her to BookCon that one year because it was just
great. Yeah, it was nice meeting her.
Yeah, because that's one of the other things that I always say this to her, and she always just rolls her eyes. I said, the only reason why I want you to come with me to BookCon is because I just want everybody to meet you, you know, because look, I love her to death. She is one of my biggest support systems, and I love when I get to introduce her to my friends, you know?
I think often you get these like different personality types that come together in relationships. Like my husband also is like, he is also, you know, like less social. He's great if you get him comfortable and talking to people, and but he's just like less interested in doing social things all the time. He'll do one day of Comic-Con with me every year, but after that he's like, I'm done. So
my wife wants us to go to Comic-Con one year.
Oh, it's so fun. It's great. I mean, it's crazy. It's like twice as nuts as BookCon, but it's great.
I know.
We're going.
I would love to. Like, I definitely enjoy going to BookCon, and my wife and I will definitely get to Comic-Con one of these days.
It's really, I mean, I think it's great. It's a little overwhelming. We've kind of made it a thing now where once a year we go together as like a date one day where we get a babysitter for the kids and like we spend the whole day together and like go to Comic-Con and geek out about, you know, The Walking Dead or whatever it is. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, I know it'll be impossible for me to get to the Funko booth, but that would definitely be one of my life goals at Comic-Con. But anyway.
I could see that. So secret tip with as a booktuber is Comic-Con is a great place to go to get arcs from publishers because most people don't go there for the publishers.
You heard it first there, ladies and gentlemen. A little tip there.
Yep.
So
yep. I got a Cruel Prince by Holly Black arc at Comic-Con 2 years ago. They just were like, oh, here, you want this? I'm like, yes, thank you.
And YouTube just officially lit up with excitement. But anyway, so let's talk about being a content creator and a parent, given the current atmosphere and climate of YouTube, because we've got, I think, two of the most talked about topics right now in the community, maybe not necessarily BookTube, but I will see a couple of nuggets out there in the Twitterverse as well. The two major things that people are talking about right now are politics and cancel culture. This is two of the talking points, but there's so many other things. So given the current nature of the climate right now, especially where there are so many opposing mindsets that are butting heads to a certain degree, maybe not 100% bluntly, but it's definitely there. You can feel a little bit of tense vibes in the air in the community right now. Do you think that this is still a good platform to promote to younger people?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I guess for me, I feel like there's always going to be positive and negative things on the internet. That's like part of what happens. And I like, for me is like, for the most part, kind of like stay in my own lane and like do what I want to do. And if there's something I think is important to talk about, I'll talk about it. But yeah, I think also YouTube is doing a good job of like, there's YouTube Kids where they do a good job of curating content that is appropriate for children and for like younger kids. And so, you know, like if you're a parent, for example, if we're talking about very young children, then like you make sure that whatever space they're in is safe. And I think as a company, like they're doing a good job of trying to create that for children. But yeah, I mean, I think having the opportunity to like put yourself out there and your thoughts and your passions, I think YouTube is a fantastic platform, and it has always had positive and negative sides to it. I don't think that that's any different than, you know, it just changes what exactly that looks like, but that, I mean, that's generally true. I'd be more concerned about Twitter. Like, I feel like Twitter is probably a more negative space.
Yeah, I agree, but I still personally love Twitter, and maybe it's just because of the fact that I try not to let those things drag it down, because look, I always, a long time ago when Twitter first got announced, I still remember hearing about it, and I thought that it was the stupidest thing I ever heard of in my life. I mean, I have no shame when it comes to my original attitude about Twitter. When I first heard about it, I said, why the heck does the world need to know when you go to the bathroom? Like, what's the point of this?
No, I felt very similarly when Twitter first came out, yeah.
But when I found out what an important tool it is for networking, especially with YouTube, it's where I really found a way to connect with more people. I mean, if it wasn't for Twitter, I wouldn't have met you or even actually had a conversation with you. And I think that that's probably one of the few things I'm not too thrilled about with YouTube right now, because especially when you see a lot of new content creators coming into this space, one of their main objectives, because when I find somebody new, especially in the BookTube community, I always go to their BookTube newbie tag. I think that that's where that person is their most genuine and their most natural. And nowadays, the most common ground of joining this community is to make friends. But YouTube is putting so many things out there to prevent people from talking to one another. And I don't And I really wish that that wasn't the case, because I remember that YouTube had the ability to post a video comment. There was even a way that people could leave messages for people in the YouTube platform itself. So
Mhm.
I'm finding that it's so hard for people to really find those connections unless they have another outlet like Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook. But
Yeah.
there's also that question of privacy and confidentiality. It's like, I don't have any issue letting people contact me on Twitter, because I don't put any of my personal information except for my birthday, because let me say, I just love birthday wishes. That's just me. But Facebook, for me to friend somebody on Facebook, there's got to be a real level of trust. Like, I got to really know you.
I mean, I don't add very many people on Facebook. I'm also not on Facebook that often. So for me,
Yeah.
like my Twitter and my Instagram are my public social media profiles. And
Yes.
so Twitter, I do a little bit. Instagram is definitely my probably platform of choice after YouTube. I treat my Insta stories as like a daily reading vlog where I like update what I'm reading and things like that. So I use that a lot. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm okay with it. Like, I also haven't been on YouTube quite as long, I suppose, but I feel like most creators have some other social media platform that they're also using. And I do think it's true. Like, you kind of need that. Otherwise, it is hard to create those connections. I haven't found that to be much of an issue. I think I have connected with a lot of people via Instagram and somewhat through Twitter. But yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
also the
mean,
comments, like even the comments on YouTube. Like,
exactly. I always say that the comments are probably the best thing that you can do to get involved in the
mhm.
community. But the last person that I had on my Sunday sit down is someone that's really not someone who likes to post comments. But you know something? That's okay. If you just want to be someone who just watches videos just for the sake of watching videos, that's completely fine.
Fine.
You make YouTube what you want it to be. You can be as active or as non-active as you want, because that's what freedom is all about. You get to be who you are, and no one should judge you for the person that you are. So
Absolutely. Well, and I think with like it's kind of a good segue to talking about the privacy issues. Like, I think similarly, you can do whatever with being a parent and like having children. I think you can similarly kind of handle that however you choose to do. Like, I do know people who their children are never on camera at all. I think that's completely valid. Like, if that's what you're comfortable with. We do have guidelines. Like, before I started my channel, my husband and I talked about like, what are we and are we not comfortable with having our kids, in a public space. And so we do have like some boundaries of like things that we don't post online. But for us, like, we're comfortable having our kids on camera and on Instagram, like within like the boundaries, but other people aren't. And I think that's also fine, that like there's not one right way to be a parent and be a content creator. And I think people should respect whatever you and your spouse or partner or whatever are comfortable with.
exactly, I agree 100%, because just fair warning for all of you out there, when that day comes when I do have a little one, that young one will not be on the channel. But I did get the permission after a long hiatus that whenever that day comes, my wife said to me, yes, you can make one little video where your intro is, hello everybody, do you want to know why I haven't been on YouTube for so long? And then just quickly show like a little something just crawling around or walking around, and then just go right back to your thing. So if anything, a future child, whatever that day may be, will be on my channel once and only once. At least I got that permission.
And I mean, I think that's valid. I think whatever you have to do, whatever makes you, whatever you're comfortable with. And so for us, it's things like we won't post our children in like underwear and diapers.
Yeah.
That's like, because there are creepy people out there, so like
Yeah.
that's not a thing. And we try to like make sure that, we're not posting things that are going to be embarrassing for them in the future. And if at some point they decide, hey, I don't want to be in the videos anymore, we would respect that. And even now, like, if my 5-year-old like, hey, do you want to be on this? Yes, no, yes, or either way, it's fine. Like, we're not going to force them to be on camera if they don't want to be either. So that's kind of been some of our approach to it.
And that leads into the last question. That is, how do you feel about the future of your family when it comes to YouTube? Because as you said throughout the video, your boys love being on camera. So
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised, especially if they know what mom does and they see that she's a very creative person. And I wouldn't be surprised if your boys inherit some of that creativity and one day they both might be interested in making their own channels. So based on the fact that there was a time when the internet was new and the parents were as cautious as they could possibly be. But now it's amazing to see what the internet has done. Everything from shopping to meeting your significant other. It's amazing what the internet has become. So with the next generation wanting to use the internet, especially considering being content creators, as because it's going to be so interesting that there is going to be a second generation of content creators and some of them were children of the first generation, because we are the first generation. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe you and
I mean,
are,
that's already happening. There's already young kids who have channels who are the children of YouTubers. So that's already exists. Yeah.
so as a mother of two boys who do like being on camera, how do you feel about them probably coming to you one day saying, "Mommy, can I make a channel?"
Yeah, no, we've actually talked about this, my husband and I. So pretty much our stance on it is, number one, as per YouTube guidelines, they have to be 12.
Mhm.
Because you're not supposed to start your own channel if you're younger unless a parent's running it for you. So they need to be 12 and they need to edit their own videos.
Ah, there you
So
go.
I think we are totally open to the possibility of that. Like I could see that happening. You're right. They do like being on camera. They're very creative and outgoing. We're okay with that as long as, like I said, they need to be 12. They need to be editing their own videos. We're not going to do it for them. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We've got a ways to go. My oldest is 5, so we've got a lot of years. So who knows what will be happening on the internet by the time he's
Yeah.
old enough for that. But yeah, we're not opposed to the idea of it though.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the fact that you're saying that your children will edit their own videos, I think that that's a very important rule, because I also feel that editing videos is a very important life skill these days to
Absolutely.
have, because if there's one thing that I have noticed, and I will, even though this has nothing to do with parenting, but this is sort of my parental attitude towards the younger group of content creators, don't be ashamed of making your YouTube channel a part of your resume,
Mm,
because the thing that I have learned being a YouTuber is amazing, all the skills that I
oh yeah.
have developed: time management, production management, customer satisfaction. I mean, I know that being a content creator, it's a fun project, but you have to have a little bit of that adult and business mentality, because you are presenting content to people, and for
Absolutely.
yourself, you know, you want people to watch you, you want people to comment, you want people to give you insight as to what you are putting out into the world, and if it's good or not. Well, you want to know what that is. You're basically creating your focus groups, and
Yeah.
you are creating a product, and people
Yeah.
are letting you know, even though your product is not on Amazon, your comments are technically your reviews. So you got to understand that there are so many skills that you are developing just by being a content creator. So never be ashamed to let the business world know all of the skills that you have learned, because you could become a professional critic. You could become a professional video editor. You can use these skills to do what I do, which is basically being a project coordinator for college data of students and teachers. It's amazing that YouTube played a role in what I do right now, even though it has nothing to do with what I talk about here in the community.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, it's funny. I was actually on Twitter today. I saw somebody post a tweet about how the fact that she'd been running her own blog, not even YouTube, but a blog for years is part of what got her her latest job. And like she was recommending if people do that for bloggers, for example, to put that on their resumes. And I think it's absolutely true. You get so many skills from it. And like being comfortable on camera, time management, like being able to edit videos, doing some of the behind the scenes stuff for me too, because I'm like a data nerd, looking at analytics and like figuring out how to use keywords to try to make your videos more searchable. And like, I try to stay up on, you know, best practices for YouTube in general. I think this is the thing, is for me, like from the beginning, I've always treated this as, yes, something fun, and yes, a hobby, but also try to treat it somewhat professionally in terms of trying to grow and do the best that I can and get better with time. And I think there's so much you learn from it. And for me, it has turned into other opportunities to do freelance work and to do things that are, you know, in some way related to what I'm doing here. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think for kids, my approach to parenting has always been like, there's this thing my dad always said that I think is great, where he said, you know, I'm not raising children, I'm raising adults.
Wow.
And that my goal is not for my children to be children forever. My goal is for them to ultimately be like functioning adults who contribute to society. And so part of that is giving them increasing responsibility. Even at this age, like they were like, oh mom, can you do this? I'm like, no, you can do that for yourself. You're old enough. You go do that. You go put your shoes on, you go get that thing out of the fridge. You're old enough to do that. Like, you know, I'm not going to like do I don't know, like that's my approach to parenting. If that's
I think
like,
that and I think that that's one of the better ways. And I think that that's another thing that a lot of parents, because one of the few things that I've definitely noticed is there was a time when there were a lot of parents that were just trying to be friends to their kids and not actually be parents. But I'm noticing now that that trend is changing, because apparently someone got the memo that other method didn't work. We shouldn't be, because what it was such an interesting thing, because I was a marketing major in college, so I learned about this. You know, there was the generation that had the parents that were basically, you know, the drill sergeants, the ones that were very, very strict, kept so many walls up. And then those kids, when they had kids saying, oh, I don't want my kids to be treated like that, I want them to be free spirits and do what they want. And then we have a whole bunch of people that don't know how to function in society, and they're taking life courses now. And I'm like, now the whole generation that saw this happening saying, okay, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to actually be parents again. So it's cyclical to a certain degree, but yeah, I was basically.
I also think it's like, it's finding balance, you know? I mean, I think it's like knowing when, okay, when do my kids just really need a hug? You know, like when do they really need help and they're feeling sick or they're sad or like whatever, they have emotions they need to work through, like being there for that. But then also like knowing when it's like there needs to be discipline, or they need to like learn how to do things for themselves so that they can grow up to function as adults eventually, you know? So I think it's like finding that balance and the like knowing your kid.
It was the late George Carlin that said something in one of his jokes. He says, I believe that kids all around the world need 60 minutes of daydreaming. He said that will make them, and he says when they're done with that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the thing, is like lives can get overscheduled.
Yeah, I think that it needs to be a time where the kids do need to be disciplined, but there also needs to be a time when the kids just need some time, even at a young age. They just need some time to themselves, be with their thoughts, be with their own interests, because it's the only way that they're going to be able to perfect themselves, you know? It's like if a kid is left alone for 60 minutes in the house, they get to do whatever they want within reason, of course. It's amazing what they'll learn from what they do by themselves.
More and more they're recommending open play, like where, you know, kids, so like going to the playground and letting them run around or letting them do imaginative play in their room or whatever. But also sometimes I think the thing is too, is like discipline can mean a lot of different things. And sometimes for me, that means helping them learn how to manage their own emotions. And so, you know, I have really young kids. Sometimes they have big feelings about things, and sometimes they might have like a tantrum. And so for me, the thing might be like, okay, you go lay down in your bed until you can calm yourself down and handle this more appropriately. And like sometimes that's what they need, is they need a timeout, literally not like in like a like you go sit in the corner kind of way, but in a take yourself out of this situation, take some breaths, calm yourself down, think about how to, you know, and so that starts at like 2 and 3 and 4, like helping them learn how to manage their feelings in ways that are going to help them function better as they get older, you know, and so that's part of it.
That's really good things to see. Well, unfortunately, that's
Yeah.
all the time that we have, everybody. But Bethany, thank you so much. This was such a great conversation, and I will
Yeah.
say I learned a lot. I
Oh,
really
good.
appreciated that last thing, because I agree with you 100% on that. I just feel that, you know, the parents definitely need to let the kids know that they're in charge, but at the same time, you want them to know that their opportunities are endless and they have the ability to be whatever they want. And I feel that when the parents help them find that healthy balance, they will be able to accomplish those dreams that they have for themselves. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Well, anyway,
absolutely.
everybody,
Thank you
thank
for
you
having me.
oh, you're very welcome. It was a pleasure to have you. It was a long time in the works. It was great to finally do a collaboration with you.
Yes.
So everybody, just want to let you all know that Bethany will actually have this video on her channel as well. And I think that that would be very important, because I think a lot of what was said here today is very important, even if you are still very young and parenthood is nowhere near your thought process down the line. You know, knowing that there are people in this community that are at that stage, there's so much to gain and so much to learn. So listen, guys, if you see someone on YouTube that that will probably be a little bit older than you, don't brush us off. We have things to say. There's so much that you can learn from us, everybody. And we still have a great deal to learn from you as well, because I still want to be relevant out there, everybody, so I want to know what the new trends are. It's always great for me to know that there's a music artist out there that I know that is new, and the fact that I'm listening to them lets me know that I'm still with it, everybody. I appreciate that, and I thank you all. But thank you very much for watching, everybody. You know, please leave your comments. It'll be great to have conversations with you on this topic, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all for another episode of Sunday Sit Down with a great topic to discuss, but more importantly, a great YouTuber to discuss it with. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend, everyone. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.